It's Pete Cohen. It's another YouTube video. It's the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Dr. Stephen Covey. This book has sold over 50 million copies worldwide. And during this video, I want to share with you how you can apply some of these habits to your life today. Notice how I said the 7 habits of highly effective people. So let me ask you this question. Would you like to be a highly effective person? And what areas of your life would you like to perform better? Chances are, if I could wave a magic wand, the areas that you would be interested in would be your health, and your energy, your relationships with your friends, your family, your colleagues, and of course, your work and your wealth. And I promise you, if you apply these habits of highly effective people, your life will transform. I'm super excited to share this information with you because I know that a great life, it doesn't happen just by chance. It happens by design. And this is why we have to give huge thanks to Dr. Stephen Covey for all of his work around the highly effective habits of highly effective people. So let's start off. Let's look about this to start off with. I want you to think about an iceberg. Now, I don't know whether you've ever seen an iceberg, but just imagine that you could see what one looks like. You'd see something on the top which doesn't really represent what's underneath. And when it comes to people changing, because a lot of people are interested in changing their life, they're often interested in changing what everyone can see, which we often call aspects of our personality, how someone looks, the clothes that they wear, the things that they say. But the real work is about working on your character, working on who you are and what's going on inside you to develop strong foundations. And the first habit of highly effective people is to be proactive. What does that mean? Well, it probably won't come as any surprise, but part of that is definitely being positive, but being proactive, being responsible, responsibility. Look, one of the things that so many of us do in the world today is we're looking outside of ourselves for the solutions. We don't realize that in many cases, we are the problem, but we are also the solution. And learning to recognize there is a space between how we think and how we feel and being able to step into that space. Are you the sort of person that ever experiences any emotion that you don't want to experience? Maybe too much stress, too much worry, too much anxiety? There is always a space, and being proactive is understanding that you have the ability, you can respond with the ability that you have to choose the way you feel, to think greater than you feel. Habit number 2 is to begin with the end in mind. And when I first heard this, I didn't actually get it. I didn't really understand what he meant. And I want to talk about 2 aspects of beginning with the end in mind. The first aspect is to understand that everything that you see like this has been invented twice. Once inside the mind of someone. So someone once upon a time, a guy called Steve Jobs, who you might have heard of, had this idea. And he saw it so clearly in his mind, most people thought he was crazy, but he went out and built, or he got people who he worked with to build what he saw. It existed twice. And this is what human beings, we all have the capacity to do this, to come up with an idea and then bring that idea into reality. So that's the first thing, to know that you can do that. But the challenge is to be proactive when you do that. And the second thing I want you to consider with beginning with the end in mind is to know that the ultimate destination, one day, guys, we are all going to die. One day you won't be here. And what he talks about is imagine being at your own funeral and imagine everyone's there and take a moment to think what you'd like people to be saying about you. Your eulogy. For me, I would like people to be saying, Pete Cohen had a positive impact on my life. Pete Cohen inspired me. Pete Cohen was someone who made me look at the world differently and gave me some tools and tips and techniques and strategies for me to achieve the life that I wanted. Now, I encourage you to do the same thing. Look, we face incredibly uncertain times at this moment. But for those of us that are driven by something that is better in the future and leaving a mark, these are some of the habits of highly effective people. Can you do this? Of course you can do this. Whether you'll do it or not is up to you. The third habit is to put first things first. And what most people do in life is they don't. It's a simple thing, but most people operate out of a space, out of things that seem urgent and important, or doing things that aren't important. He talks about this as the 4 quadrants. The area that I want to talk to you about is stuff that isn't necessarily urgent, but is important. And really, in your life, what is important? I dare you, take a piece of paper and a pen and write down what are the things that are really important in your life and how much attention do you actually give those things. Now, those first 3 habits are all about you becoming more independent, less dependent on everything else around you, but more dependent on yourself, independent. The next 4 habits are about becoming interdependent, which is you realize that this is much more than just you. Become a better version of yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, and then look to create that with other people, interdependency. So the 4th habit, it's one of my favorite habits of all, is to think win-win. What does he mean about that? He means, how can I help you? How can I serve you? Could we have a transaction where we can both win rather than win-lose? And a lot of people have that kind of way of moving through the world where they either want to take advantage of people or they let people take advantage of them. We can all help each other. That might sound like a cliche. And in the making of these films, you know, I really hope that they help you. You take something from it. That makes me helps me to win, because I want to help you to win. How can we all help each other? If you comment here or if you share this video, that also is a win for me. And then it becomes what he calls synergy, which we'll come to in a moment. Habit number 5 is seek first to understand. How many people do you know in the world today that are obsessed with being heard? They're obsessed with being right. They're right and you're wrong. Many of us grew up that way. There's a right way and a wrong way. Well, actually, my right is your left. And one of the best things I can do as a humane human being is to be compassionate enough and kind enough to understand you first. Seek first to understand. How can I help you? What are you going through right now? What do you need? And this took me a long time to get my head around, because for so many years of my life, and maybe you can relate, I was so insecure. So I was not interested in anyone else. I was desperately trying so hard to be heard, to get people to like and appreciate me. But it took me a while to wake up and realize, hang on a second, it's much more important to find out how other people are and what you can do to serve them, to help them go from where they are to where they want to be. And habit number 6 is synergy. And this is where we start to get really curious about how can we work together? How can we make this work? And if you think about what's happened in the world today recently, the whole world has massively changed, and we see how fragile the world is, that when one thing goes down, so many other things go down, that they all rely on each other. Now we have an opportunity to maybe rebuild the way that we move through the world and synergistically try to make things work better amongst us. That's why the 7 habits of highly effective people, I feel right now, are probably more important than ever to bring these into the world and practice these. This is about developing your character. This is about developing what other people don't actually see. And habit number 7 is sharpen the saw. You might have heard that story of the man who's in the forest with a saw, and he's literally sawing down this tree with a blunt saw because he's just been going and going and going, and someone says, hey, whoa, 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 excuse me. Why don't you stop what you're doing for a moment and just sharpen that saw? And the guy's going, no, I can't. I've got to do this. I've got to get this tree down. He doesn't realize if he stopped and renewed the saw by sharpening it, he'd be much more effective. Sharpening the saw is about daily renewal. And we have to do this every single day. If we don't, we really run the risk of running out of juice, running out of energy. And for some people, it's quite boring and quite mundane to go to work on yourself, because you know that we've created a world right now where it's so easy for us to be comfortable, to not feel like doing something. So look, in summary, do you want to be a highly effective person? Because if you do, there are habits, there is work that needs to take place. And I promise you, if you practice these to be proactive, to respond with the ability that you have, if you begin with the end in mind, with your ideas, and understand here's an idea, that you're going to have to bring that idea to life by being proactive and stepping into that space between stimulus and response, to know there's a bigger picture here, the end of your life. It's coming one day. And to know how you want to leave and the mark you want to leave behind is so important. And habit number 3, put first things first, which is really about working on the things that are important more of the time. Habit number 4, think about win-win. How can we help each other? How can we both win here? Habit number 5, seek first to understand. How can I help you? What do you need? Habit number 6, synergy. Let's work together and align things in such a way that we all build a better life and a better world. Habit number 7, sharpen the saw. Time for renewal. So what's the next step? The next step for you, well, is to take some time and think about what's your biggest takeaway. But I also encourage you to watch the video that I made about Tony Robbins if you want to take this to the next level. That video is all about motivation and how Tony Robbins actually helped save my wife's life. If you want to watch that, just literally click here and you can watch it. Thank you so much for watching. What's your biggest takeaway? And I can't wait to see you next time. Take care and happy, beautiful day.